My name is Karen Sawyer. I've been dating my boyfriend, Henry, for 4 years, and we've been living together for 2 years with the intention of getting married. Henry has said that he wants to have a wedding ceremony when we have enough money, even though we're at the point where all that's left is to register our marriage. As for me, I think it's okay to have the wedding ceremony later, but I want to at least register our marriage. However, Henry insists on having the wedding ceremony before registering the marriage. Amidst this, I found out I was pregnant. I happily told Henry, but he didn't seem very pleased. Pregnant? Yeah, that's right. Henry, frowning at me, seemed to say, "Why would you get pregnant?" That's why. I think we should at least register our marriage. I timidly said that. Why? If we don't register before the baby is born, the child will be considered illegitimate. Even if we get married, the child will be listed as an adopted child in the family register. That would be so sad. I see. But still, I think it's important to do things in order, like having the wedding ceremony first. I couldn't say anything more to him, who said this seriously, but I desperately wanted to register our marriage before giving birth. I absolutely wanted to avoid our child being considered illegitimate. Thinking this, I repeatedly brought up the topic of registering our marriage to him, but the answer I got back was always the same. As I approached the due date, I stopped bringing up the topic of registration. My friends asked me, "Aren't you going to get married? Are you going to be a single mother?" My parents kept saying, "When are you going to get married?" But even if they say that, there's nothing I can do if he doesn't say yes. However, one day, he suddenly said, "Let's register our marriage after all." But you said the wedding comes first. I thought that, but if we marry after the baby is born, won't the child be considered an adopted child? It's weird to think of my own child as adopted. So, I thought it's better to at least register our marriage now, even if the wedding is later. I was happy he finally understood, but I was afraid his mind might change if we delayed any longer. Then, let's register our marriage today. Right now? Yes. There's a saying, strike while the iron is hot, right? Well, yeah, that's true. It's okay, now. What does he mean by now? Though his words puzzled me, afraid that asking might change his mind, I didn't inquire further and rushed to the city hall. Despite having submitted our marriage registration, we weren't called for a while. I wondered why it was taking so long when a woman from the city hall came over and took me aside, away from him. It's difficult to say this, but you're already married according to our register. Huh? What are you talking about? You're married, aren't you? No, but it shows you are in 2 years of marriage. I've never been married. Why would that be? That, I don't know. We only processed that needed to be. Who is the other party? A foreign national. Foreign national? I don't know such a person. Are you saying you have absolutely no knowledge of this? None at all. If that's the case, did you possibly lend your name to someone? Why would I do such a thing? To acquire American permanent residency. Marrying an American and staying in America for 2 years brings the foreign national 10 years green card. There are cases where people do that to acquire nationality. That's absurd. I don't even know any foreigners. Then, it might be best to consult the police. Then, what about our marriage? Under the current circumstances, we can't process your marriage registration. This is terrible. When can we get married? If your marital status is dissolved. which means divorce the foreign national man. You can register a marriage with him. How? We can't tell you anything here, so please ask the police, I'm afraid. I'm pregnant. It's his child. I understand that, but it's determined by civil law. This is absurd. Henry, noticing I hadn't returned and sensing a dispute even without hearing the conversation, came over. What's wrong? Did something happen? The city hall staff, upon seeing him, walked away as if they could no longer intervene. But what should I do? Should I tell him the truth? But now that he's finally ready to marry, wouldn't knowing the truth make him call off the marriage? What will happen to our child then? But beyond the fear, anger was rising. Why should I be afraid over something I hadn't done? Why is this happening to me? Hey, what happened? Overwhelmed by the sudden revelation, I blurted out, "The police," and started running. Surprised, he chased after me, caught up, and demanded an explanation. What's going on? Hey, Karen. He grabbed me and shouted his questions. I thought, I can't. I have to tell him, or this will turn into a fight. I steeled myself and told him everything I had just learned. Name lending. His quiet murmur pierced my heart. I didn't do such a thing. I don't know any foreigners, and I wanted to marry you, Henry. There's no way I would do something like that. I know. It's okay. He tried to reassure me, saying it was okay, but his complexion turned pale. I thought he might be considering calling off our marriage. That's why we have to go to the police. We can't let this go. We need to get this sorted out. But for some reason, he was against the idea. There's no need to go to the police. Why? I'm being prevented from marrying you over something I didn't do. But, look, it's not really a problem, is it? Not a problem? How can you say that? Soon, this baby will be born. If that happens, even if we marry, this child will be considered an adoptee. How can you say there's no problem with that? Well, it can't be helped. These things happen. He forced a smile, trying to calm me down, but my anger didn't subside. What when this child grows up and sees their family register? They'll think they were adopted. No matter how much we explain, they won't understand. That's something we can't help. We'll deal with it when the time comes. That's just. Come on, let's not worry about it too much. Let's just give up on this, okay? How can you be so calm about this? It's strange. I'm not calm. But this is the situation we're in. Sometimes you have to accept things. Despite his words, upon closer inspection, he seemed not calm but rather anxious. It didn't seem to be about my supposed divorce history, but rather about the idea of going to the police. Why? Why can't we go to the police? Dealing with the police and all that, it's just a hassle, isn't it? What if something happens to the baby because of all this stress? We should focus on making sure the baby is born safely. I'm just worried about you. Really? Going to the police is just a consultation. I can't see how that would harm the baby. Even if we consult the police, it's not like we can get married right away, right? If consulting today meant we could marry today, then sure, it'd be worth it. But that's not going to happen, right? So, it's a waste of time. A waste. Yeah, it's just a waste of time. With that, he left to buy a drink, leaving me to ponder. As I watched him walk away, memories of our time together flooded back. Every time I brought up marriage, he found a reason to postpone it. He didn't seem happy when I told him I was pregnant. He looked at my growing belly as if it were a nuisance, sighing deeply and frequently checking the calendar. I couldn't understand why. Perhaps he didn't want to get married at all. I had thought this not just once or twice. And yet, today, he suddenly suggested we register our marriage. I thought, it's strange. He says we should register our marriage. Yet he remains so calm in the face of such a situation. He doesn't blame me or panic. Instead, he tries to stop me from going to the police. Why? After 4 years together, I find myself unable to understand him, and suspicions begin to surface. Here, I bought this for you. Coffee is bad for the baby, right? So, I got you juice instead. Drink this and calm down. Thank you. I accept the juice, looking up at his face, but the doubts remain. Hey. What? Was it you? Ed? What do you mean? Did you arrange for me to be married? Ed? No, why would I do something like that? He laughs, but his face seems strained. If I had done something like that, I wouldn't be talking about getting married, right? It's only been 2 years since that marriage was registered, hasn't it? I thought, 2 years. That's not something I said. I stared at him intently. What? Is there something on my face? I said we couldn't get married. But I never mentioned anything about the register being 2 years. Really? No, that's not right. You just said it a while ago. You're just too upset and forgot. Henry is clearly flustered. His nostrils flare, a sign that he's lying. Why would you do something like this? Because, feeling trapped by my piercing gaze, he seems to relent and finishes his coffee. Why? Why did you do this? He starts to justify himself as if resigning to the situation. It can't be helped. You kept talking about marriage. And from my side, I'm doing all I can, but we also need money. Especially if we want to have a wedding ceremony. We just needed the money. But I said it was okay, just to register our marriage. Why would you resort to a sham marriage for that? It's fine, isn't it? Thanks to that, we got some money. So that's why you were always looking at the calendar? Waiting for the 2 years to be up? Yeah, that's right. After 2 years, we'd get a divorce, and that would be the end of it. What do you mean, the end of it? In the end, we can't even get married. It's not like we can't get married. We just have to wait for a bit. After coming this far, it isn't a big deal. So, for that, our child has to be born out of wedlock? You don't think that's a big deal? I'm going to end up with a divorce record without even being married. This is ridiculous. Who are you planning to marry anyway? Hey, you're marrying me, right? Then what does it matter if you have a marriage or divorce record? I know all about it. If you were marrying someone else, yeah, having a divorce record might be a disadvantage. A divorce record isn't something to be taken lightly, is it? It's light. Who looks at a record unless they need to? Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You're overthinking things. I can't see it as simply as you do. You're so stubborn, really. Try to think more flexibly. There are still plenty of foreigners at my company, you know. Lending my name to just one person nets $5,000. Can you imagine how many tens of thousands of dollars we can make going forward? A mark on the family register is nothing in comparison. Why would you do something like this? I heard it from the foreigners at the company. Marry an American woman for 2 years, even a sham marriage. And you can get a long-term green card. But if you ask an organization to arrange it, it costs tens of thousands. They said they couldn't afford that. So, I asked how much they could pay, and they said $5,000 was the limit. So, I thought, why not? And you arranged for me to be married because of that? Yeah, it was a great idea, wasn't it? We got $5,000 out of it, even though I hadn't considered we couldn't remarry immediately after a divorce. So that's why you kept finding reasons to avoid registering our marriage. Exactly, that's right. And that's why you were always looking at the calendar. Yeah, man, I was so nervous. It was almost time for the divorce, and then you were about to give birth. Honestly, I didn't want the child to be considered adopted. It's my own flesh and blood, after all. So, I was hoping the 2 years would pass quickly. I was worried what would happen if the birth came early, but it all worked out in the end. Though I never expected this kind of accident. This is awful. To tarnish someone's marital record over something like this. Don't worry about it. They just took a little time and delayed the process. We can register our marriage soon. To think you'd treat someone's marriage and divorce so lightly. No one would believe this if I told them. No need to tell anyone, right? This is a crime. It's a fraud. If you don't say anything, no one will know. But that makes me a criminal too. Not if you don't talk about it. Plus, the foreigner involved will eventually get permanent residency if we keep quiet. I got some money, and very soon, we can get married. It's all good. If that's the case. Let's have a wedding ceremony. We can have the ceremony and then register our marriage. You have $5,000, right? Why are you silent? You have it right about that. It's gone. I suspected as much. Someone willing to engage in such deceitful acts wouldn't just be after wedding money. There had to be another motive. My trust in him crumbled, feeling like the man I knew was disappearing into a mist. Why is it gone? Well, I had some urgent expenses. I used it for that. What did you spend it on? I had some debts. It looked like things were going to get pretty bad if I didn't pay them off. What kind of debts? Various kinds, you know. And are all your debts paid off now? He didn't answer. So, you still have debts? Well, yeah, but there are lots of foreigners at my company, you know. There's always a way to make money. So you used my name. I guess I have no choice but to go to the police. Because it's a crime. Now that I know about it, reporting it to the police is my duty as a citizen. You've got to be kidding. I won't let you go to the police. Despite his protest, I started running towards the police station. Instead of trying to stop me by grabbing me, he pushed me from behind. Due to the push, I fell down the stairs, which caused my water to break. An ambulance was called, and amidst the pain and anxiety, I was desperate to protect my baby. I was taken to the hospital, where my child was safely born, but he never came to visit me. I could not forgive him for trying to kill our child. Henry had no regard for human life, not even the life of his own child. I couldn't believe I had fallen for such a person, and I couldn't help but despise myself for it. After being discharged from the hospital, I went straight to my parents' house to discuss the matter with my mother. I can't believe he was such a person. Upon hearing my story, my mother was shocked and shed tears at my suffering. So, what will you do now? I was made to participate in a sham marriage, and he almost killed our child. I have no intention of forgiving him. I see. So, you've settled your feelings towards him then? Yes, I'm glad I found out what kind of man he was before we registered our marriage. Mom, what he did is punishable by law, right? Yes. She started searching on her smartphone. It seems like it falls under the crime of creating a false official document. The penalty is imprisonment for up to 5 years or a fine of up to $5,000. Imprisonment for up to 5 years? Yes, it seems you can just pay a fine and that's it. It feels too lenient, doesn't it? To tarnish someone's family register and get away with such a light punishment is unforgivable. I'll definitely get my revenge. Determined to make him pay for ruining my life and almost involving our child. I vowed to bring him down to hell. A few days later, after leaving my child with my mother, I headed to Henry's parents' house. It's been a while. Oh, welcome. Where's the baby? I have something important to discuss today, so I left the baby at home. Oh, is that so? She seemed a bit disappointed, but that was the least of my concerns. Henry isn't with you, is he? No. Because I came here about Henry. Seeing my serious demeanor, Henry's parents looked at each other and then sat upright to listen to what I had to say. I have some shocking news. Recently, I went to submit our marriage registration. Oh. So you finally officially got married. That was the plan. However, it turned out that I was married. Eh? Of course, I've never been married or divorced. When I asked who the other party was, they said it was a foreign national. What? And Henry? This is the shocking part. I thought it might be a fraud. So I suggested going to the police, but Henry said not to. When I pressed him for an explanation, it turned out he had arranged for me to be married without my knowledge. That's ridiculous. Permanent residency can be acquired by marrying an American woman and staying married for 2 years. Henry knew this and arranged for me to marry someone, planning to file for divorce after 2 years. Did Henry really do this? Yes, I confirmed it. That's why I tried to go to the police, but I was pushed down the stairs, my water broke, and I was hospitalized. My child was born safely, but what he did is unforgivable. What a terrible thing to do. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Yes. But I can't forgive him. Of course. He tried to kill your child by arranging a sham marriage. That's unforgivable. Indeed. What was he thinking doing such a thing? He said he had debts. And there are still debts remaining. Do you know what the debts were for? No, he didn't disclose that. That's why Henry isn't with you today. Rather than that, I haven't seen him since he pushed me down the stairs. He didn't visit me in the hospital or see the child. I see. That's terrible. I understand you can't forgive him, but is there something you want from us? More than a request, I wanted you to know everything. I can't forgive him, so I will divorce him. I don't know what trouble might come to you in the future. That's why I thought you should know. Right. If we didn't know, who knows what else he might do. And we can't just let this go. What do you mean? If we sided with him after all this, it would be a disservice to Karen. I think it's only natural for you to want a divorce. As parents, all we can do is turn our backs on him. If he comes to us for help, I don't plan on forgiving him. Is that okay? Thank you. I couldn't ask for more, so I'll accept your decision as your will. And since he tried to kill our child, I'll make sure he faces justice. Even if it means you'll resent me, it can't be helped. What do you mean by that? I'm going to the police to tell them everything. That's unavoidable. Making him atone for his sins is for the best. Yes. Henry's mother looked very distressed. It's understandable, considering her child might be arrested. But I almost lost my child. Even though I understand her feelings, it doesn't change what I have to do. Can you contact Henry? Yes, I think so, but why? Call him here. Why? Even if we're going to hand him over to the police, it's better if he turns himself in. Plus, he owes Karen an apology. Okay, I understand. Without telling her son that I was there or about the sham marriage. She simply said she wanted to see him and called him over. Contrary to expectations, Henry came, thinking he could enjoy a homemade meal. However, he found me there instead. Why is Karen here? Henry, do you realize what you've done? What do you mean? You pushed Karen when she was at full term. That. Karen just missed her step. Karen, why are you twisting the story? It's unthinkable for a pregnant woman at full term to just miss her step. She would be walking with the utmost care. But Karen is always so careless. It happens. What about the sham marriage? And how do you plan to excuse that? So, you've been talking to Dad, huh? You told him. It's true then? Well, if you know, there's no point in hiding it, right? It's not a big deal anyway. Not a big deal? Yeah, because it's true. There are foreigners who want American nationality, so I just helped them out. That's all it is. If you think about it, it's like helping people. How could you do such a thing? Karen didn't know about it, did she? That wouldn't have been a problem if we had just not married until the foreign nationals things settled down. It's just that I didn't fully understand the law about remarriage. Karen was just too obsessed with registering the marriage. Of course she was obsessed with it. She was about to have a child. If she hadn't rushed, we could have married normally very soon. But because of that, Karen's marital record is now tainted. Don't you feel bad? No, I don't. It's not like I said I wouldn't marry her. If she marries me, there's no problem, right? The problem is her saying she'll go to the police. Karen has decided not to marry you. What? Really? Yes, I've lost all feelings for you. What about the child? Though, since we weren't married, I guess you can't demand alimony or child support from me. Right, I have nothing to demand from you. Then it's fine. I was thinking marrying you might not be the best idea anyway. What do you mean? If I married you, I couldn't make you marry off foreigners anymore. Missing out on such a good deal just because we have a child? I think it's better not to miss out on such opportunities. What kind of person are you? If we're not getting married, it works out. You need money to raise a child, right? Just marry another foreigner. After 2 years, you can divorce. It's not a big deal just because you're registered. Creating a false official document. What's that? Your crime. Why would I have a crime against me? Because it's a crime. Ha! That's only if you report it to the police. You don't want to be pushed down the stairs again, right? Or maybe this time, the child will get hurt. So, don't think about reporting to the police. Instead of doing that, why not lend me your name and make money together? I don't think so. You're so stubborn. Henry, what you did is a crime. Turn yourself in. Huh? Don't be ridiculous. Why should I turn myself in? I was helping people. How can that be considered helping? Besides, you pushed Karen down the stairs. That was because Karen. You just confessed, didn't you? Confessed? What are you talking about? You admitted to pushing her down. And now, threatening harm to the child? You're just piling on more crimes. That's just a slip of the tongue. I haven't done anything wrong. It's all for helping people. You. I've made up my mind. I won't report him to the police. Karen. As long as he thinks this way, reporting him would be futile. So, I won't report him to the police. Is that really okay? Yes, it's okay. I don't want to risk my child's life anymore. Please live peacefully. That's the Karen I know, always understanding. Then, I'll be leaving now. Yeah, bye. Now, I'll have to find another woman to lend her name. That way, I can make a fortune. Wasting 4 years on such a foolish man was a complete waste of time. But I had no intention of letting it end there. I went straight to a lawyer to seek advice and decided to sue Henry. Henry, I never said I would let you off the hook. I just said I wouldn't report you to the police. Enjoy your descent into hell. After suing him, the police took the matter seriously. The foreigner involved was deported. After paying $5,000 and then being deported, it must have been a tough break for him. Henry ended up receiving a prison sentence. Initially, he boasted that he would just pay a fine of $5,000, but his parents, disgusted by his actions, refused to pay the fine and didn't visit him. As a result, he spent 5 years in prison. Upon release, Henry faced the reality of being jobless. Disowned by his parents, Henry had no one to turn to, although he lightly thought he could just find another woman for a sham marriage. However, finding a woman willing to participate wasn't as easy as he thought, and he ended up facing a new punishment, loneliness. Without a place to live and with a criminal record, he couldn't find employment anywhere. His life became almost homeless-like, and at one point, he desperately came to me, asking me to lend my name again. When I heard his request, I was astonished he was still thinking along those lines. And of course, I refused. I told him to find legitimate work if he didn't want to end up back in prison. But whether he took it to heart or not, he left without even seeing his child. As for where he is now and what he's doing, not even a rumor has reached me. Meanwhile, I've returned to my parents' home, where we're raising my child together. Despite the difficult circumstances surrounding the birth, my child is growing up healthy and keeping me on my toes every day. Yet, I find this daily life incredibly fulfilling. A friend I hadn't heard from in 3 years, Daisy, contacted me. I gave birth to a healthy girl. Give me a $3,000 birth celebration gift. We're best friends, so it's only natural, right? I was shocked by her words. What? You got married? Yes, I did. Responding to my surprised question, Daisy replied cheerfully. Just as I was about to congratulate her, Daisy said, "It must be because you lacked appeal that you guys couldn't have kids." I was frozen by Daisy's words. She had married my ex-husband, Mike, and they had a child together. Mary? You're coming, right? Daisy's triumphant voice reached me as I involuntarily fell silent over the phone. How did it come to this, and you never contacted me before? I had many things I wanted to say, but expressing them would only play into Daisy's hands. I took a deep breath to avoid being provoked and opened my mouth. Sure. I'll come with my lawyer husband. And so, I headed to her house with my husband, Tom. No one could have imagined that Daisy's reaching out would end up derailing her and Mike's lives. My name is Mary. I was born and raised in a rural area of Boston. I spent my life there until high school and then moved to LA for work, living alone in an unfamiliar place from a young age. I remember feeling very lonely in LA without any friends. So, after work, it became my routine to call friends and family back home. Even after several years, I never got used to the environment and had no acquaintances outside of work. Then, a turning point came my way. I met a man who was a friend of my colleague's husband when I visited their home. His name was Mike. Born and raised in LA, he was a doctor at a university hospital. Mike was the same age as me. To me, a country-raised individual, Mike, who grew up in LA, seemed very sophisticated and attractive. Mike also took a liking to me, and soon after we met, we began dating and got married in the year we both turned 30. The first person I reported my marriage to was my friend Daisy. I met Daisy in elementary school, and we went to the same school through middle and high school, essentially best friends. Daisy was the only daughter of a local politician, a well-bred young lady. Inherited from her father, she had a leadership quality and decisiveness. However, this also meant she had always thought of herself as the best, for better or worse. I, on the other hand, was indecisive and lacked confidence. So, the confident Daisy, who always took the lead, was someone I admired. Even after moving and not being able to see each other often, my feelings of cherishing her as an important friend did not change after I went to LA. That's why I called her first to report. Daisy, you know, I'm getting married. What? No way. That guy. Mike, right? I had, of course, talked to Daisy about Mike. Although they had never met, she knew his name and profession. Yes, that's right. Marrying a doctor, huh? You're winning. Like a Cinderella story. Amazing. Hearing my news, Daisy seemed excited. I couldn't help but laugh. Amazing, she said, making me misunderstand that she was happy for my marriage. It's not like that. Besides, doctors don't earn much yet, and it seems like he doesn't have much savings either. So, it's not a Cinderella story, but that's okay. I'm not marrying for money. So, I casually denied Daisy's words. However, it seemed my way of saying it rubbed Daisy the wrong way. She paused for a moment and said in a cold voice, "Huh? What's that? Are you bragging? Pretending to be humble? Our love is pure, money doesn't matter?" What? After all, despite saying you wanted to come back here, you never did. And to top it off, you marry someone from there. You look down on us locals, didn't you? Her tone was neither warm nor joking. It was more like she was looking down on me, which made me hastily respond. That's not what I meant at all. I did want to come back, and I never imagined I'd end up getting married here. But here you are, having done just that. Are you getting carried away thinking you're now a city person? Being happy about marrying up you would leave a much better impression. That's not it. I didn't know what to do, as Daisy took my mere announcement of marriage the wrong way. I'm sure you'll have a fancy wedding, right? Looking forward to the invitation. Daisy left me speechless with those words and then hung up the phone. Did I say something so terrible? I immediately tried to call back, but she didn't answer. I sent an email, but there was no reply. I had planned to announce my marriage to other friends after contacting Daisy, but I had completely lost the mood for it. Still, I couldn't just invite Daisy to the wedding. Our parents knew each other from way back. Besides, I was inviting other friends from my hometown, so I couldn't exclude Daisy, my best friend. After that call, I tried contacting Daisy several times, but she never responded. The wedding invitation I sent came back with just a check mark for attendance, no message, just a simple response. Disgusted by Daisy's immaturity, I decided to apologize at the wedding for my poor communication and naturally take some distance afterward to avoid such issues. On the wedding day, Daisy arrived in flashy attire, acting as if that phone call had never happened, cheerfully greeting me with friends. Hey. Mike is handsome. I imagined some nerdy loser since he's a doctor. I was stunned by Daisy's opening remark. Mike, standing by my side, burst into laughter upon hearing it. You're Daisy, right? Thanks. Please take care of Mary. Feel free to visit us in LA anytime. Mike's response surprised me again, knowing the tension between Daisy and me and my intention to distance myself, yet he said, "Please take care, and come visit." Really? Thank you. I was looking forward to meeting Mike, and likewise, please take care of me. Daisy then casually touched Mike, shifting from calling him Mr. Mike to using his first name without any honorifics. Watching this, I wasn't pleased, but saying anything would ruin the wedding. I forced a smile and got through the moment. Daisy's dominance continued. She went from one doctor to another, introducing herself as Mike's colleague. Watching this from the head table, I was anxious. It seemed like she came fishing for men. Among the guests were Mike's seniors and bosses. It was frankly embarrassing that my friend was acting inappropriately toward my husband's colleagues. Perhaps because of this, I was utterly exhausted by the end of the wedding. Yet, thinking I wouldn't see Daisy for a while brought some peace. However, I underestimated the situation. Mary. I came to visit. Daisy started visiting our house once a month, saying that, and always staying for 2 nights. Mike is so funny. I have fun too when Daisy-chan comes over. And so begins their drinking sessions. I'm not good with alcohol. Inevitably, I end up having to clean up the living room after their drinking spree. Naturally, Daisy doesn't bring any snacks or drinks. Preparing those is also my job. After about a year of this, I told Mike, I'm thinking of telling Daisy not to come over anymore. It's tough on you always having to entertain her, and honestly, preparing the futon and shopping is hard for me too. Don't say that to a friend who comes from our hometown to see you. I'm fine with it, so let her keep coming. Did Mike forget that I wanted to distance myself from Daisy? It's like I'm the bad guy. Despite discussing my issues with Daisy and Mike several times, Mike doesn't take my concerns seriously. I start feeling ill just days before Daisy's monthly visits, growing to dislike her more and more, and even starting to dislike myself. Despite occasional arguments about Daisy, Mike and I were somewhat happy. One day, when Mike was out, Daisy and I ended up drinking together at home. Non-alcoholic again? You're not pregnant, are you? Just drink. Yeah, but I'm not good at it. So, aren't you going to get pregnant anytime soon? Daisy abruptly asked me this very sensitive question, and I could only offer a wry smile. Yeah, we do want to. Maybe you lack feminine charm? Better hurry up before you're too old for a safe pregnancy. Laughing, Daisy made this rude comment. Even if she was drunk, it was too much. I snapped back. What's that supposed to mean? You're the same age as me. And you're not even married yet. Shouldn't you be focusing on your own life? Huh? What's with that attitude? You think you're better than me just because I'm from the countryside? I didn't say that. With no one to stop us, our argument escalated. Daisy banged the table as if about to lunge at me. Don't get cocky just because your husband is a doctor. My dad is a politician, a lawyer, and a person with a much higher income. And you used to mock Mike's salary too. That's not. Just then, Mike came home. Frowning suspiciously, he glared at me. Is what Daisy-chan said true? You've been mocking me for my low salary. Yes. She said they couldn't save it because of it. Mike believed Daisy's words and both stared at me accusingly. That's a misunderstanding. I did say we chose not to focus on salary when Daisy accused me of being after money, but I never complained like that. Even so, wouldn't that hurt Mike's pride? Can't you see that? Daisy's obvious attempt to side with Mike and win him over was clear. I ignored her. Clearing up Mike's misunderstanding and repairing our relationship was more important. Mike was silent for a moment, then sighed. But honestly, our relationship hasn't been great. As Daisy-chan said, my pride is hurt. Let's discuss our relationship again. That's not. Next to a smirking Daisy, I sincerely apologized to Mike. I told him that my love for him wasn't because he was a doctor, and that my feelings for him were still genuine. However, despite my words, Mike only said he was disillusioned by me. Eventually, we ended up getting divorced. I tried to avoid the divorce, but Mike's feelings just wouldn't change. So, I tearfully accepted the divorce for his sake and to allow him to start a new life. 3 years passed since the divorce was finalized. I spent those years without contacting Mike or Daisy. Some friends asked why I wasn't in touch with not just Mike, but Daisy as well, especially since she sided with Mike during our divorce crisis instead of supporting me. One day, I received a call from Daisy, whose number I had kept on my phone. Hesitantly, I answered the call. "Hey, there? How've you been?" I was momentarily taken aback by Daisy's unchanged demeanor after 3 years. "I gave birth to a healthy girl. I'm expecting a $3,000 celebration gift. We're best friends, so it's only natural, right?" I was astonished by her words. "What? You got married?" "Yes, I did," Daisy replied cheerfully to my surprised question. Just as I was about to congratulate her, she said, "It must be because you lacked appeal that you guys couldn't have kids." I was stunned by Daisy's words. "What? Mike and I are both happy to see you after so long." With those words, I understood. Daisy had married Mike and they had a child together. "Mary? You're coming, right?" Daisy's triumphant voice reached me as I involuntarily fell silent over the phone. How did it come to this, and you never contacted me before? I had many things I wanted to say, but expressing them would only play into Daisy's hands. I took a deep breath to avoid being provoked and opened my mouth. "Sure. I'll come with my lawyer husband." "Huh? Since you married Mike, that means you're living here?" Yes. We're living in Eldada." "I see. Then give me your address. I'll come to visit." Daisy seemed not to grasp the unexpected fact, but I continued the conversation one-sidedly. It would be troublesome to be bombarded with questions, so after getting the address, I quietly ended the call. A month passed, and the weekend arrived. I visited the address Daisy gave me. I didn't ask when the baby was born, but if she contacted me right after the birth, the baby would still be a newborn. Considering it would be hard on them, I decided to wait a month before visiting. On the way there, I spoke to my husband Tom, who was driving. "Sorry for the trouble, especially on your day off." "No, don't worry about it. I had remarried about a year ago. We met through a popular matchmaking app. Tom might not be a typical handsome guy, but he's a very kind person. We hit it off immediately after the meeting. After we started dating, I learned about his job. I was surprised. He is a lawyer. I wanted someone to see me for who I am, not for being a lawyer," he said, which is why Tom left the job and salary fields blank on his profile. I did wonder why it was blank, but since some profiles have missing information, I didn't think much of it. "Right. Should I set up the navigation? Do you know the address?" When we stopped at a red light, Tom, sitting in the driver's seat, said that. I took out a note. Then, looking at the address again, I caught my breath. No need for navigation. "I'll guide us there." "Really?" "Okay." The car started moving again slowly. I stared at the address once more. The address written there was undoubtedly the address of the condo I used to live in with Mike. I should have remembered it after hearing it just once. At that time, my mind was too full to notice, but thinking about going back to that house made me a bit nervous. Upon arriving at Daisy's place, Tom and I entered together. Nice to meet you. I'm Daisy, Mary's best friend. At the entrance, Daisy greeted Tom with a smile. But, seriously, I'm shocked you got remarried and didn't tell me. I thought it'd be bad if I was the only one happy, so I was being considerate towards you. Daisy laughed. Considerate? Did she feel even a bit sorry for marrying Mike? If that were the case, I would have rather she properly informed me. I asked Daisy with a wry smile. Anyway, when did you get married, Daisy? I had no idea you two were together like that. About a year and a half ago? We met by chance, Daisy said without meeting my eyes. Stepping into my former home after a long time felt strange. It seemed Mike wasn't there, which I was honestly relieved about. Daisy, while feeding the baby milk, asked Tom things like, "What do you find attractive about me?" I thought it was none of her business, but since Tom was politely answering Daisy's questions, I didn't join their conversation and glanced at the shelf. There were many photos of Daisy and Mike. Among them were photos I took when Daisy used to visit monthly. There were also pictures of their outings and Daisy with a large belly. Looking at those, a question crossed my mind. For a couple who supposedly reunited by chance a year and a half ago, there seemed to be no gap in the photos. Considering the seasonal outfits and hair color changes, there appeared to be no 1.5-year gap from the photos I took over 3 years ago. Could it be that they were dating even while I was married to Mike? As I pondered, memories of their closeness and atmosphere came flooding back. Once I started thinking about it, it was hard to see it any other way. I slowly turned around. The way Daisy looked at Tom was all too familiar, and anger surged within me. It was like the gaze of an animal that had found its prey. Fearing that Tom might be stolen from me too, I addressed Daisy sharply. Daisy, you didn't happen to steal Mike from me, did you? Daisy dodged my gaze. Then, she burst into laughter. You've been looking at those photos and thinking about that? Stop laughing and answer me. You are silly. But thanks to that, you could meet Tom, right? It turned out well, didn't it? Daisy admitted it casually. I was furious, but seeing the small baby in Daisy's arms, I couldn't bring myself to scold her and bit my lip instead. Besides, in the end, you preferred a lawyer over a doctor, right? That's why you divorced Mike so easily. Those words were unbearable. Neither Mike nor Tom was chosen based on their professions. Meeting Tom indeed brought me happiness, but that was a different story entirely. After divorcing Mike, I was truly devastated and couldn't eat anything due to shock. I blamed myself a lot, wondering what went wrong. Yet, to think it was all because Daisy was dating him makes their mockery of me unbearable. As I fought back tears, Daisy laughed triumphantly. Tom, this girl loves chasing after rich men. You're young, you should find someone else. That's not true. I looked at Tom desperately. Then, Tom murmured with a troubled face. I see. I think I understand the situation now. His words shocked me, thinking he was disgusted with me. Daisy, on the other hand, smiled even wider. It was like the day Daisy sided with Mike against me. But Tom clearly stated, So, Daisy, you've been involved with Mary's former husband since they were still married, right? Yes, that's right. You're foolish for not noticing. Irritated by Daisy's laughter, I retorted, Alimony. I'll demand alimony. Don't be silly. The statute of limitations for alimony claims is 3 years. It's already expired. That was the reason Daisy had contacted me. It had been 3 years. They thought what they did to me had been erased as if it never happened. Tom laughed. You seem well informed, Daisy. Of course, that's basic. Mary is the fool here for not knowing. However, Mary does have a right to claim. Even if the divorce is finalized, alimony for infidelity can be claimed within 3 years from the day she learned of the fact. Today is the day Mary found out. So, the 3-year period starts now. Daisy turned pale at Tom's words. No, that can't be, really? We can't claim for the divorce, but we will certainly claim alimony for the infidelity from both of you. Please reflect on how you've hurt my wife. Mary, let's go home. Wait, it's a misunderstanding. Next to a flustered Daisy, Tom gave me a reassuring smile. Relieved and happy that Tom had remained on my side until the end, I wiped away my tears. The gentle and caring Tom started the process of claiming alimony, desperately trying to heal my wounds. Simultaneously, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from Daisy and an unknown number. When I answered once, hearing Mike's voice made me hang up immediately. Thanks to that, I also got Mike's number, making the paperwork smooth. On another day, we visited their home again. These are the documents related to the alimony claim. We've brought them for your review. Since it was a Sunday, Mike was also at home. As soon as we arrived, both of them bowed their heads. Mary, I'm truly sorry. Please, I beg you to drop the lawsuit. Daisy suddenly became meek, apologizing profusely. I looked at her coldly. I kept quiet for your sake. I thought it'd hurt you. We thought we'd take this secret to the grave. Yes, that's right. We only told you because you seemed happy. Seeing Mike after a long time, he spoke as if they had done nothing wrong. They kept insisting they hid the truth for my sake, which wasn't amusing at all. You do realize you were wrong, don't you? Of course. Then, pay the alimony. But their mouths were shut at those words. The conversation was going nowhere. An apology without substance means nothing. Tom began to calmly explain about the alimony. Anyway, we will be claiming $3 million from Mike to Mary, and $3 million from Daisy to Mary, totaling $6 million. $6 million. There's no way we can pay that much. The amount Tom mentioned made them go pale and red in a frenzy. But without changing his expression, Tom calmly explained why they had arrived at that amount. While they complained that it's too much, and we have a child. A normal person wouldn't demand such an amount from a couple who needs to raise a child. Tom raised his voice for the first time to silence their nonsense. That's how serious your actions were. All this talk about taking it to the grave is ridiculous. You just gave in to your desires. Stop making excuses. With that, the two of them were effectively silenced. Next to them, I felt deeply grateful for Tom. Understood. Mike muttered softly. Wait, Mike. Are you out of your mind? Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? I'll figure out my part. You can borrow from your parents or something. What? There's no way I can do that. They began to argue in front of us. Certainly, Mike has income as a doctor, while Daisy does not. We'll be leaving then. Please contact us once you're ready. Prompted by Tom, we too left the house. After closing the door, we heard Mike's angry shout, "Why did you tell Mary?" No sign of remorse. Hearing such voices, Tom and I laughed as we left. Walking to a nearby coin parking, it was then. Wait a moment. We stopped at Mike's voice. Get in the car first. Nodding to his words, I got into the car. The window was slightly open, allowing their conversation to be heard. Not wanting to listen, I was about to close it, but without starting the engine, I just sat there quietly. Doctor, you know my situation, right? Please do something. Mike's words made me look up. That's a separate issue. Mike calling Tommy doctor sounded like they knew each other. I found it strange, but felt like it was a conversation I shouldn't be listening to. Yet, what was heard couldn't be helped. The conversation reached my ears unavoidably. So, how much is left now? Tell me. We shouldn't discuss this here. What if someone hears us? Just tell me. My life is on the line here, Mike urged Tom in a panicked tone. Tom spoke softly. Hearing this, Mike opened his mouth as if to confirm. So, $2 million to Aiko's husband and the remaining $1.1 million in installments to Manami's husband. On top of that, $3 million to Mary? There's no way I can pay that. I was taken aback by Mike's words. Also, the fact that you were Mary's ex-husband. If things continue this way, it's only a matter of time before Daisy finds out and claims alimony. Please, don't let Daisy know. Of course, I have a duty of confidentiality and wouldn't go around spreading the word. But can you keep it hidden forever? Listening to Tom, Mike held his head. Seeing this, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Their conversation suggested that Mike had repeatedly committed infidelity. The spouses of his partners found out, and he is currently in the middle of paying them alimony. Are you working just to pay alimony? It's time to grow up. I know that. Well, take care not to let Daisy find out. If you don't cherish her, you might end up losing your family and your money. With that, Tom headed back to the car. Mike's plea, "Doctor, wait," went unheeded as Tom didn't stop. When our eyes met, Mike froze, probably thinking he couldn't show me such a pitiful sight. The alimony for Mary cannot be reduced by a single yen. Thank you for your understanding. Finally, Mike slumped against a concrete wall, seemingly at a loss. I hope he uses the brains he wasted on avoiding the discovery of infidelity to alleviate the victim's suffering. Sorry to keep you waiting. Tom got back into the car with a smile. I greeted him with a smile in return. Thanks to him, I was able to get the alimony from Mike and Daisy. Daisy had asked Mike to front her share of the alimony, but he had no such capacity. Ultimately, she had to turn to her parents. Her parents, of course, knew Mike was my ex-husband, but likely never imagined he was the cause of our divorce. Indeed, Daisy had told me they reconnected a year and a half ago. Essentially, she lied to her parents, who were furious upon learning the truth. They even came to apologize to our home. Daisy's mom said it was her fault for spoiling her too much. Her dad said he wouldn't let her step foot in our house again. Even with proper parents, a child might not grow up right. I mused on this as if it were someone else's problem. After settling down, Tom and I went on a trip to a southern island. The hotel with a view of the sea healed the hardships and wounds of my heart. I might be too old to have children now, missing my chance, but I feel truly fortunate to have met Tom. If I hadn't met you, I'd probably still be alone, at the bottom of my sorrow. I'm so happy to have met you. Thank you for being with me. I wanted to be with someone who could see me for who I am, not what I do. Thank you for meeting me. Let's keep looking forward to more together, Tom said to me. Moving forward, I hope to never forget our current happiness and to see many more beautiful scenes with him. Isn't this soup too salty? It's too much for me. You should be more health conscious. My mom always made sure to use less salt. You really need to do better. Do you think so? I think it's just the right flavor. Don't use your standard. Think about my mom's standard. What if this affects my work? What will you do then? Well, yes, but my husband Ben is a nurse working at the clinic run by his father, and is extremely attached to his mother. constantly comparing everything to how his mother would do things, from cooking to household chores, despite not contributing himself. Here we go again, mom, mom, mom. How much can one person love your mom? After 2 years of marriage, I have become mentally exhausted by Ben's behavior and have started to think about wanting a divorce. By the way, I've been feeling off recently because my period hasn't come. I know it's your day off, Ben, but I'm going to the gynecologist today, so just relax at home. Okay. I've been working part-time at a local bakery, which has been busier lately, often leaving little time for breaks. Since I've always tended to experience delayed periods and feel unwell when I'm stressed, I suspected I might have irregular menstrual cycles and went to the gynecologist for a checkup. I've been stressed out recently, and my period has been late again, and it's been making me feel unwell. How late is it? About 2 weeks. I see. Let's do an ultrasound and maybe a pregnancy test? A pregnancy test? Yes. If your period is more than a week late, there's a possibility you could be pregnant. Hearing the doctor's words, I remembered something. Indeed, I had experienced the same issue before and had undergone tests, but nothing was found. I was surprised to be told the same thing again. Could it be pregnancy? I was skeptical at the time, but the unexpected test result was a pregnant. Hearing that, I felt a surge of happiness, but to be honest, I was also filled with anxiety. Could I endure that lifestyle in this situation? The more I thought about it, the more anxious I became. Ben, it looks like I'm pregnant. Oh, really? That's how it is. Aren't you surprised? No, not really. It's natural for humans. If you have sex, pregnancy is a possibility. It's good, isn't it? You wanted a child. At the beginning of our marriage, we shared joy and sorrow over various things. But could it really turn so cold in just 2 years? I felt saddened by my husband's attitude. Then, 10 months later, after I had safely given birth, my husband threw even more insensitive words at me. Emma, can we get a divorce? Huh? Why? I've found someone else who makes me much happier than you do. I'm happy now. To me, who had been growing tired of my husband's mom issues and his tendency to impose his ideals, his words were actually a relief. I had been wanting a divorce for a long time, so I gladly accepted. You know, having a wife who's a nurse is great. She takes care of nutrition management and everything. A whole different level compared to you, who only works part-time. A few days after the divorce, he called me to taunt me with that. His new partner seemed to be a nurse working at his parents' clinic. When I heard her last name, something clicked. By the way, isn't your new wife's clinic the one Mr. Johnson took over after your dad? The Johnson Clinic? You're sharp. Yes, exactly, Mr. Johnson's daughter. She just finished her training and started working at the clinic this year. She's 10 years younger than me. I'm going to be their son-in-law. Oh, really? My husband didn't know that my father is the director of a well-known general hospital in our area. Nor did he realize that people in the same profession are well connected. He had no idea that his life was about to take a dramatic nosedive, hitting rock bottom. My name is Emma. My father runs a well-known general hospital locally, and I was a nurse at his hospital for a while before deciding to pursue what I truly wanted to do, which led me to run a bakery in our hometown. I wonder if I get bored easily? I started baking because it was something I wanted to do, but now I feel like I have burnout syndrome. Once I achieve a goal, I don't feel as passionate about it. You've always been like that, sister. But isn't that fine? There are people who can't even do what they want. So I respect you for being able to take action. It's nice to hear you say that, but what do you think? Given the circumstances, don't you think you're better suited to run the bakery? Why don't you take over? Really? I've wanted to try it, and if you're offering, then I'll take it on. I handed over the bakery I was managing to my sister, Elsa, and worked there part-time, wanting a more relaxed job. It was during this time that I met my current husband, who happened to visit the store. After 3 years of dating, we got married when I was 36. I'm Emma, and I'm getting married to Ben. Nice to meet you. Are you Robert's daughter? Yes, why? Did my son say anything strange when he greeted you? What's the matter? No, it's nothing if he didn't say anything odd. At that time, Ben's father was unusually deferential to me. I was curious about his attitude, so I asked my father when I got home. He used to work under me at my hospital. So, did he lie about running a small clinic when he came for the marriage proposal? I didn't want to unnecessarily scare him by revealing my circumstances. It's fine for now, we can talk about it properly later. But shouldn't we have been clear about it at that time? It was an unexpected fact. I had no idea that Ben's father was a former subordinate of my dad's. I thought it would have been better to be upfront about the facts during the marriage proposal. But little did I know that this decision would be greatly beneficial in the future. It's funny that your marriage partner is Kevin's child. It's not funny. It's fine, it'll come out soon anyway. At that time, I was surprised by the miraculous circumstances. But once married life began, it turned into a daily hell. Emma, why isn't dinner ready yet? Sorry, I got busy at work and dinner preparation got delayed. My mom would have left work early to prepare it properly. Why grilled fish? I've told you so many times that I like fried chicken. My mom always knew my favorites and prepared meals accordingly. Sorry, I'll be more careful next time. Such complaints went on and on every day, always about what his mom would do. At first, I went along with it reluctantly. But my husband's selfishness escalated with each passing day. Where are my underwear? What? My underwear? Why haven't you prepared it? I can't change without it. Well, get it yourself. Huh? It's your job to take care of things around me, isn't it? Do it properly. Aren't you mistaken about something? You're an adult, not a child, right? So? Isn't this normal once you're married? That's not normal at all. You really need to stop. What kind of way is that to speak to your husband? The audacity was too much. He began to impose his ideals on me more and more, acting as if he was the lord of the house. He wouldn't help with household chores, and when he was home, he would just lie on the sofa doing nothing. I couldn't stand his arrogant attitude. If you say something ridiculous one more time, I'm going back to my parents' house. Yeah, whatever. Do as you like. I said things like that to deflect my husband's selfishness, but his responses were cold throughout. Probably by then, his affection for me had faded. And after 2 years of not being able to visit our parents' houses for various reasons, including being busy with work, I discovered I was pregnant. It was a mystery how I could be pregnant when the affection between us had faded, and even the memory of it was vague. It seems I'm pregnant. Oh, really? That's how it is. It was sad to be met with such a cold attitude after announcing the pregnancy. I had hoped that having a child would change his feelings, but those hopes were dashed with his response. A few days after the pregnancy was discovered, a call came from my husband's family home. After taking the call, he shouted, "Why? How could this happen?" But after hanging up, he began to talk to me in a clearly depressed tone. It seems my dad has suddenly died. Heart attack. What? Why so suddenly? I don't know. Mom said it might have been from overwork. I was stunned by the sudden news. Anyway, they said to come to the hospital right away. We hurriedly prepared and headed to the hospital, but although I felt sad, there was a sense of emptiness inside me. I couldn't think of anything, feeling almost like I was going to a relative's funeral. I'm sorry for not visiting sooner, Mary. I never imagined Kevin would pass away so suddenly. Upon arriving at the hospital and greeting my mother-in-law, Mary, I wiped away the tears that had gathered in my eyes and started speaking with a composed voice. As I said on the phone, he died from overwork. He was trying to do everything by himself. By himself? But wasn't Ben there? I suppose Kevin didn't think he could rely on him yet? That's why he kept trying to do everything on his own. Is that so? That's why Ben was able to take time off so often. I began to feel a sense of sadness. The thoughts of my father-in-law's feelings and Ben's work situation were swirling in my head. The thought that he didn't trust Ben enough to leave things to him, trying to do everything on his own, made my heart ache. How are you feeling, Mary? Mary had been gradually progressing into dementia over the past few years. With her husband gone, I was worried that her condition might worsen. Mom's fine. Now I have no choice but to do my best, right? What are you talking about? You won't be able to take over the clinic. It's in your father's will to have Mr. Johnson take over after he passed. Didn't you know? Huh? Is that so? So, I can just keep working at the clinic as usual, right? Yes, well, basically. Ben's face, which had been slightly annoyed a moment ago, suddenly relaxed completely. I could only feel distrust towards his attitude. Aren't you frustrated, Ben? About what? Because it was said that you couldn't be trusted with the responsibility. Not really, as long as I can work, that's fine. I always wonder, why is this person so disinterested in the world and so insensitive? Even when his own parents made such demeaning remarks about him, he responds so nonchalantly. Mary looked as if she had run out of patience seeing such Ben. Are you okay, Mother? Yes, I'm fine. I know what he's like. I spoiled him too much. Ben's mother seems to blame her upbringing, but to me, it felt like Ben's very nature was rotten. It was to the point where I felt she didn't need to apologize at all. After the funeral, life went back to normal, and the thought of being subjected to my husband's unreasonable whims again made me feel disheartened. The taste is different from my mom's stew. Get ready by 5 a.m. and wake me up. The unreasonable demands increased. And since the clinic's leadership changed from his father to someone else, Ben's whims were no longer indulged, leading to a stricter work schedule and more irritation from him than ever. It felt more and more like he was taking his frustrations out on me. Ben, I'm 8 months pregnant now. You can see if you look at my belly. It's gotten quite big. Can't you start doing things on your own? I'm not your slave. Huh? Pregnant or not, you're my wife, right? You need to do your duty as a wife. Enough already. Everything you say is about Mom. Comparing me to your mother and then imposing your ideals on me is crazy. You lack consideration for others. Our emotional clashes escalated day by day. The stress put such a strain on me that one day, in my 8th month, I collapsed from stress and was rushed to the hospital. I nearly miscarried. Despite knowing the circumstances, Ben remained indifferent and quickly left after completing the hospital admission procedures. You need to divorce that husband of yours soon. If you keep this up, you're endangering yourself. Really, if it affects the child, it would be terrible. Yeah, I know. I think it'll be resolved soon. I was so glad to hear my parents caring for me. I had been reluctant to say, I want a divorce myself. I don't know why I was so stubborn, but thanks to my parents, I was able to let go of that stubbornness and decided to tell my husband about the divorce the next time he visited. But something unexpected happened. He hadn't visited me at all during my hospital stay. But on the day I gave birth after reaching the 9th month, he showed up confidently. Lightly jabbing at my tired body from childbirth, Ben started talking flippantly. Emma, can we get a divorce after all? Huh? Why? I've found someone else. She treats me way better than you, and I'm happy now. Instead of me bringing it up, my husband was the one to mention divorce. And for such a reason, claiming his current life was happy. My patience finally snapped. Oh, really? Do as you please. I've been wanting to divorce you too. Is that so? Sorry. I'll make sure to pay child support and compensation. Let's end this amicably. What is he talking about? He thinks life will go on smoothly as before? He'd better brace himself. The stress I've endured from the time of my marriage has been greater than I imagined. Enough to harbor hatred towards my husband. After a provoking call from my husband, I learned that his current wife's father had connections with my own father. Considering this situation, I began to plot my revenge. I planned to use my father's influence to completely ruin my husband's life. Sometime after giving birth, I moved back to my parents' house with my child and left our previous home. Ben paid me about $100,000 in a lump sum for child support and compensation. Believing we had amicably divorced, I discussed future plans with my father, who was somewhat aware of the situation. My father also seemed to be considering revenge against my ex-husband and made a proposal. For now, shall we pull Ben into our hospital? What? Dad, what are you talking about? That would ruin the hospital's reputation. Don't worry, we can handle that. If we really want to punish that idiot, having him close to us would make it easier to press him to his limits. What are you thinking? Questioning my father's insinuating actions, he revealed a shocking fact. Did you ever wonder whose child you were carrying when you found out you were pregnant? Now that you mention it, I couldn't figure it out. When you married Ben, it spread as a rumor among other hospitals. I heard through the grapevine that he was instructed on how to use a sperm bank. According to the rumors, he said, I want to test if it really leads to pregnancy on my wife. What? Is that even possible? That's a crime. What was he thinking? Wait, so I suspect that bastard tried it on you. I don't remember anything like that. That seems more likely. But why? Maybe he wanted a divorce? That makes no sense. Why would getting me pregnant achieve that? He must have wanted some sort of trigger, and pregnancy seemed the most suitable. My father was furious. It was the first time I saw my calm and kind father with such an angry face. Ben had done something that was understandably infuriating to my father, and it felt inevitable that my father would want to trap Ben in return, whether the rumor my father heard was true or not. Given the pregnancy I couldn't recall initiating, I had to believe it. I felt incredibly sad. Was this pregnancy unwanted? I wondered if it was truly the destiny for this child to be born, and I couldn't stop crying. You shouldn't be sad. The child was meant to be born, that's why you had him. The child is innocent, make sure to give him a happy life. My father's words were comforting. Yes, the child is innocent. If this life was meant to be born, then I should pour all my love into making him happy. But that ignited a fierce anger towards my ex-husband for playing with life for his own sake. Dad, I'm not sure how we're going to crush him, but let's do it thoroughly. I'll also do whatever I can for revenge. Of course, I'm a doctor who's fulfilled my duties. Did you think I'd stay silent after what he did to my precious daughter? Both my father and I reached the peak of our resentment towards Ben. A few days later, as my father declared, he scouted Ben to work at his hospital. And on his first day, my father, Ben, and I had a meeting. Long time no see. It's good for you, getting scouted by this hospital. Huh? Why are you here, and? It's been a while, Ben. I'm counting on you to work well in our hospital from now on. Wait, but Robert, you said you were the head of a small clinic. Sorry about that. I didn't want to shock you then and didn't find the right opportunity to tell you the truth until today. My father exerted considerable pressure on Ben. Just a moment ago, he seemed elated about working as a nurse at a general hospital. But his expression gradually darkened, giving off an increasingly uncomfortable vibe. Yes, I'll do my best. Just remember, if you do anything to tarnish our reputation, you're out of here immediately. My father said this in a somewhat light-hearted tone, but his eyes were serious. Ben seemed to realize this and responded with a forced smile throughout. As days went by, it was visibly clear that Ben was becoming more exhausted. The attacks from a senior nurse at work and the cold treatment from colleagues due to his incompetence seemed to be taking a mental toll on him. He felt his freedom was more restricted than at his previous clinic, and he was significantly more stressed. How's it going? I've heard from others that you've been making a lot of mistakes lately. Are you getting too tired? Yes. I see. Well, it's important to take breaks, so make sure you take some time off. My father occasionally tried to boost Ben's morale with such remarks. But Ben's incompetence was worse than expected. He failed to do proper handovers before taking leave, and made noticeable mistakes in patient records, leading to complaints from patients and tarnishing his reputation within the hospital. Eventually, my father had no choice but to fire Ben. Please wait, I beg you. If I'm let go from here, I can't return to my family's clinic. You should understand by now how much you're damaging people's trust by working here, given you can barely do your job. What do you mean? I know. You were already abandoned by Mr. Johnson before coming here. With your reputation this damaged, no clinic in the area would hire you even if you applied. Please wait, I really won't have anywhere to go if you do this to me. You accepted the scout from this hospital without understanding your own capabilities, didn't you? Please, I'll do anything, even menial tasks. Can't you just keep me here? That's impossible. Unfortunately, you're fired starting tomorrow, so don't come back. This was my father's revenge. Ben had already been given up on by his father and Mr. Johnson, who took over the clinic later. Everyone was fed up with Ben's inability to work, looking for ways to deal with him. And then, my triumphant moment began. Emma, I got fired. I have nowhere to go now. And after paying you the compensation in one lump sum, I'm barely scraping by. Plus, my mom's dementia is getting worse. I really need help. Can't we work something out? No, leave. I'm not helping. Please, I can't handle this on my own. Why should I? Don't you have a wife? About that. What about it? We got divorced. I thought so. You did to her what you did to me, right? Ben was speechless. He was beginning to understand the extent of the harm his actions had caused. Isn't this just karma? While looking down on Ben, who was now utterly defeated, I slammed some documents in front of him. This is for damages. You could have been arrested for what you did. Understand that. How do you know about this? Don't underestimate the connections in the medical industry. Everything you did to me is well known over here. After that, I contacted the clinic where Ben had gone to the sperm bank, as my father had referred me, to get the full details. It seems Ben indeed inseminated me while I was asleep to test if artificial insemination could work. After learning this fact, I gathered clear evidence, including testimonies and warnings from the clinic's doctor advising against such a dangerous act, and submitted it to the court. As a result, I was able to claim damages and slammed those documents in front of Ben. Wait, I don't have any money. Pay up. Or would you prefer I go to the police and have you arrested? Which will it be? You're kidding, right? Why is this happening to me? This is all you're doing. Can you compensate for the emotional turmoil you've caused me? Let alone understand the feelings of the child born out of your selfishness? Do you have any idea how I felt discovering the truth? Enough with the jokes. You played with human lives so carelessly, you deserve this. I don't even want to see your face anymore, just disappear. I let out all the pent-up feelings I had been holding inside towards Ben. The compassionate feelings for my child were so strong. They made the harassment due to Ben's mom issues seem insignificant. As I yelled at Ben, anger filled my eyes. But tears streamed down my face as I sobbed and vented my frustration. Ben, perhaps overwhelmed by my intensity, cowered and prostrated himself on the floor. I'm truly sorry. I now really understand how you felt and how much you had to endure my whims. I've also realized how kind you were. So please, I'm not asking to get back together, but I need some support. I've run out of money, and if things stay this way, I can't even afford housing. It's too late for anything now, please just go. I can't stand to see you anymore, I hate you, just leave. My final shout seemed to hit Ben directly, and with that force. He fell on his butt from his prostrating position. I'm sorry, he muttered in a barely audible voice, then quickly vanished from the scene like a ghost. Since then, I've cut off all contact with Ben and haven't seen him. Afterward, Ben's mother's dementia worsened significantly, requiring her to be placed in a facility. Ben, inept as ever, struggled to make ends meet with non-medical jobs, failing at every turn. Mom, I've had to sell the family home. And now I can only afford to live in a $200 rent apartment. Was I always this incompetent at work? It's so humiliating. I feel like crying. Ben appeared severely emaciated and mentally broken, clearly affected by his inability to provide or work efficiently. Who are you, calling me Mom all this time? After Ben's father passed away, his mother's dementia progressed rapidly. It worsened day by day, and recently, even though she had barely managed to recognize Ben, she finally reached a point where her cognition became so impaired that she could no longer recognize him at all. Mom, you're joking, right? The dementia has progressed this far. We heard about their dire situation through the grapevine within the medical community. Though I'd like to say Ben deserved for what came to him. Involving his kind mother made me feel guilty. Yet, all I could do was pity them, feeling frustrated that there was nothing more I could do. Despite feeling sorry for his mother, I couldn't bring myself to support Ben in any way. It's been 3 years, and Matt has grown so much. I'm thinking of moving out of this house. Are you sure? Your mother and I wouldn't mind you staying. And we'd actually prefer it if you did. My father said this, but my sister was getting married. And her husband offered to join our family as a son-in-law, considering our small family. Considering it would be inconvenient for me to stay at home, I decided to move out. What? You're moving out, Emma? Yeah, it's awkward to stay at home forever. Especially when your husband is so good with kids and even takes care of mine. I guess so, but I'll feel lonely without you. After that, I visited the real estate agency that had helped me when I set up my bakery to look for a property. Emma? Is that you? Scott? What are you doing here? This is my dad's company. No way. I had no idea. Well, Miller isn't exactly an uncommon last name, so it's easy to miss. It turned out that the real estate agency was run by the father of a close male friend from high school. He had joined the company after I had a land contract for my bakery. There's no way I could have known that. It feels nostalgic, doesn't it? How about we gather the old gang and have a mini reunion? The reunion was decided on a whim, and catching up with old friends brought back many memories and stories, making for an enjoyable time. From there, Scott and I grew closer. He listened intently to the hardships I'd endured with my ex-husband, and I ended up crying as I recalled those times. He did his best to comfort me. Sorry for bringing up such a gloomy topic and crying at the reunion, but just remembering it makes me cry. Let's stop that. I understand how you feel. Now, let's just enjoy some happy drinks. After he said that, I couldn't stop crying for a while. He hugged me, and I cried into his chest until I had no more tears left. I'm sorry, thank you. I said that, and then grabbed the new beer that was ordered, chugging it down in one go. Determined to forget the past, we enjoyed the night. Scott and I started dating that day, and a month later, we had a whirlwind wedding. If you're looking for a place to live with your child, you could just move into my family's home. Let's live together. His words were a proposal. Now, we live happily in his family's home, who are well-known landlords in the area, building a happy family life with our new child. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Do you even understand what you're saying? Of course, I understand. Then he lets out a big sigh. So, you're saying we're going to be out of work from now on? A woman like that is worthless, right? Yeah, that's right. It seemed our son, who had been listening, walked into the living room. His face was grinning. Isn't that a bit too harsh to say? Huh? What are you talking about? You're going to be useless from now on. Useless. It's not that surprising. Honestly, it's embarrassing that such a person was my mother. Hey, don't be so blunt with the truth. He was a stepson from a remarriage. Seeing the ugliness of these two, I even thought that they might have been the reason for the divorce. The verbal abuse towards me did not cease. To think that such a person was my mom. Don't say that. Isn't it sad? But it's the truth. The two of them were getting excited as if I wasn't there. Thinking that I had devoted my life to such people made me feel hopeless. Then, suddenly, they turned their attention to me. By the way, how long are you going to stay in the house? That's true. What do you have to say about that? Huh? You don't understand anything. A woman who can't earn a penny should get out of this house. Dad's right. I can't stand being married to someone ugly like you anymore. Get out, you mean divorce? What else would it be? I married you because you said your father was a company president. Having been told so much already, there was no need for me to hold back anymore. It seemed the happy times were before we got married. If you're going to say that, I'll leave. Are you satisfied now? That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to see your face, so please leave quickly. Are you really okay with this? Stop nagging and just go. At this point, I could only be amazed by their stupidity. Moreover, these two were forgetting the most important thing. You'll regret this, you know? As if. Stop whining. The lie I just told was the last chance I gave them. I wondered what their reaction would be if they knew my annual income was $13 million. Well then, goodbye. With only a small bag, I left the house. The real battle starts now. I would make them taste hell for everything they had done until now. I am Jenny, 42 years old this year. And last year, I got married for the second time in my life. The first time was in my 20s. My family was against it, but I married anyway. Are you really okay with this? I've decided for myself. If anything happens, you can always come back home. Mother, it's because you pamper her like this. But she is our only daughter after all. All right, all right. Then I left my parents' house and started living in a different town. At first, I thought my married life was going well without any problems. However, changes started to appear about 10 years into the marriage. Huh? What do you mean by that? I told you just now, right? Divorce. Divorce. What are you suddenly talking about? It's been 10 years since we got married, and you show no sign of taking over the company. Maybe it was a mistake because we were opposed. At this point, I understood everything. The reason he married me was just for my money. It was a mistake to marry someone like you. I see. If that's what you want, I don't mind. But since I rented this house, please leave quickly. Huh? Don't joke with me. Why not? Why not? It's obvious. I lived here too, you know. It's truly astounding that he would say something like this. For now, I decided to leave the house. Continuing to argue would only be troublesome. Eventually, I was able to get a divorce with the help of a lawyer. My main concern was my parents. Contrary to my worries, both my father and mother were kind. So it's come to this, huh? Sorry. Well, it's okay. We were the ones who allowed the marriage. So, what will you do now? How about working at our company? Huh? My father was the president of a trading company. I had chosen a different job because there was something else I wanted to do. Initially hesitant, I decided to accept my father's offer, feeling I had caused enough trouble. So, I started working at my father's company. However, I said I'd work, but I didn't hear anything about this. Is that so? My apologies. Anyway, I'm counting on you from now on. I began learning from my father as a sort of secretary. The reason being, my father eventually considered me as his successor. I hadn't anticipated this, but by then, I had no right to refuse. Half a year into this new lifestyle, to alleviate the stress of work, I started going to a bar alone. That's where I met Scott, my current husband. You dropped this. Huh? Ah, thank you. I saw Scott drop his wallet as he was leaving the bar, so I handed it back to him. Please be careful from now on. Yes. Thank you. Scott thanked me and left the bar. 3 days later, I encountered Scott again at the bar. Ah. Thank you for the other day. From before. Is your wallet okay? It's fine. May I sit next to you? Please do. We chatted and got along well. After talking for about an hour. So, how about we exchange contact information? Contact information? Sure. I was drunk and felt bold enough to agree. From that day on, we became like friends who would drink together at the bar. I wasn't particularly looking for anything more, but the companionship felt comfortable. It was about 6 months after meeting Scott. While we were drinking at the bar as usual. If it's okay with you. What is it? Well, would you go out with me? Go out? What? I hadn't expected him to say such a thing. I hadn't felt that way at all. I appreciate the sentiment, but... Is it absolutely no? Ah. I thought... What should I answer? After hesitating for a while. Then, how about we try it out? If that's the case. Honestly, I thought this might be good for both of us. Then, I look forward to it. Me, too. So, we started dating on a trial basis. At that time, I was 40 years old, and Scott was 44. Despite the age difference, Scott looked much younger. Since our relationship had already been somewhat established, there was no need to be overly cautious. When I first went to Scott's house, excuse me, it's small, but make yourself at home. I encountered a surprising situation. Entering the living room, I saw a middle school-aged boy sitting on the sofa. Who is this? Sorry, I hadn't explained yet. This is my son, Alex. Say hello. Hi. I hadn't expected him to have a son. We ended up drinking, and it turns out Scott had divorced in his 20s. The child from that marriage was Alex. At first, Alex was standoffish, but as we met more often, he seemed to open up. Before I knew it, a year, then 2 years had passed, and I was 41 years old. By the way, Jenny, what do you do for work? Ah. Well, it's kind of administrative. I'm like that, but my father is the president of a company. What? You're working at your father's company? Huh? Did I say something weird? No, not at all. Right? Yeah. I tried to say it as a joke, but the two of them reacted more than I expected. Then they started whispering to each other. Is something wrong? Nothing. At that time, I thought they were just surprised by what I said. But it was after we got married that Scott showed his true colors. That day ended with an indescribable feeling. A rapid development occurred a week later. Scott proposed to me at the bar where we met. I want you to marry me. I'm really happy, but am I really okay? What about Alex? Actually, it was his idea to begin with. Really? Of course, I wanted to marry you too. Can I have a little time to think? Understood. After returning home, I immediately called my father. Marriage? Yeah. I'm of age now. I can decide on my future myself. If you say so, I won't stop you. Thank you. Just. There's something important I need to tell you. So, come home next time. The next day, being a holiday, I went home as my father had asked. So, what's the matter? Listen carefully. I'm thinking of making you the president of our company. You've learned a lot from me, haven't you? No, that's too soon, isn't it? Of course, I don't mean to leave everything to you right away. I plan to support you as the chairman. His eyes were serious. My father was over 70 years old, and I couldn't rely on him forever. Understood. Really? Will you do it? I don't have confidence, but there are many employees. I'll do my best in everything I can. The days that followed were like a whirlwind. I worked hard, though I was not used to the job. However, I felt like I was forgetting something important. I thought, what was it? I hadn't checked my smartphone for the last few days. As expected, there were many missed calls from Scott. Sorry, I've been busy with work. I was worried. Are you free tomorrow night? Yes, I am. Then, let's meet at the usual bar. The next day, I gave my answer to the proposal. It's late, but please take care of me from now on. So, that means? Yes. After submitting the marriage registration, we started living together. Since the three of us were going to live together, we decided to move at my suggestion. Alex also became a college student. I thought a happy life for the three of us was about to begin, but the atmosphere gradually started to change. I began to notice this a month later. By the way, Jenny's dad is a president, right? Yes, but... So, that means you'll eventually become the president too, right? I felt a sense of discomfort with Scott being so eager about it and hid the fact that I was already the president. Well, I don't know when that will be. But it must be soon, right? Maybe. He kept asking regularly if I had become the president yet. Being asked so many times was tiring for me. You keep asking, but is there something? No, nothing special. Is that so? He stopped asking so frequently after that. I thought things might settle down, but my work as president got busier. You've been coming home late recently. What are you doing? What do you mean? I'm working. Even so, isn't it too late? I don't think so. Scott started taking out his frustration on me. Not only when I came home late from work, but he also found fault with me over trivial matters. Despite not being married for long, our relationship was deteriorating. During such a time. Huh? That's what I'm talking about. The tuition for Alex. I thought you were going to pay for that. I might have said that, but we're a couple, aren't we? We need to support each other. I understood what he was saying, but he had mentioned he was saving for Alex's tuition fees. That means he might have spent it on something else. You didn't spend it on something, did you? Of course not. While we were having this conversation, Alex conveniently arrived. What's going on? Actually, your mom seems to have spent the money that was for your tuition. What? What are you talking about? Seriously? That's not true at all. There's no reason for me to spend it in the first place. Despite what I said, Alex glared at me. So, please take care of it. This was the first time I felt like punching someone. Both of them weren't listening to reason. Although I could pay without a problem, I was curious about what he had actually spent the money on if he really had. Noticing he was wearing a watch he doesn't usually wear caught my attention. I'm not particularly interested in watches, but my father loves them, which is why I recognized it. I don't mind paying, but can I ask you something? What? Where did you get that watch? This? I've had it for a while. I wasn't asking when you got it. Scott had a look of regret on his face. I wondered if he spent the money on that watch. But you didn't spend it on that, right? What? Don't talk nonsense. Angry, Scott stormed off to his room. I don't know what happened, but please take care of the tuition. I wished it had ended there, but the situation wasn't so simple. Misunderstanding something, Scott's spending became even more reckless. He never touched Alex's tuition money, but he kept asking me for money instead. Manage your own expenses. Money doesn't grow on trees. Don't be so stingy. Stingy? That's not the issue here. Anyway, I need money. I told you before that my parents are sick, right? I heard that, but first, we need to understand the situation. I tried to make a call, but Scott slapped the smartphone out of my hand. What are you doing? Don't meddle in unnecessary matters. Huh? It's normal to check the situation. Then forget it. Wait. Where are you going? Doesn't matter where. It was already past 10 p.m. Eventually, Scott left. I was so tired, I didn't want to think anymore. Waiting seemed foolish, so I decided to go to bed. I'm not sure how long I slept, but I was awakened by someone calling me. Who said you could sleep? What now? Just get up. He forcefully dragged me out of bed. From his appearance, he seemed drunk. You're drunk, aren't you? That doesn't matter. It does matter. Ah. You're so annoying. I couldn't understand why he woke me up. So, what do you want? I almost forgot. Lend me some money. Again? And this time, you can't ignore it. Huh? According to Scott, he had taken a loan from a consumer finance company. He started borrowing after I last refused. And I put your name down as the guarantor. What have you done? So, if we can't pay it back, they might contact your company. I was speechless at the shocking revelation. I never imagined he would go this far. Moreover, upon further discussion, I found out there was a debt of over $10,000. Since we weren't short on money, I paid off the debt the next day. When I reported this to Scott. Oh, so you paid it off. Please don't do something like this again. That's up to you, isn't it? What do you plan to do next? Nothing. Just, maybe you could lend me some money from time to time. After all, you're the daughter of a president. Scott quickly took $300 from me and then disappeared into the night. I felt like I was becoming a slave to Scott. However, that wasn't the only problem. After Scott left the house, Alex came back. Huh? Where's Dad? He went out a little while ago. Well, I'm going to bed then. Alex stopped me. Wait a minute. Do you know what Dad is doing? What do you mean? So, you don't know? He's probably with a woman right now. What? He's cheating? Probably. Well, you not noticing it all this time is pathetic. Alex, explain yourself properly. Why don't you ask him directly? Alex then went to his room and locked the door. I knocked several times, wanting to hear more. However, there was no response. But I didn't give up. Eventually, Alex unlocked the door and came out. About what you said earlier. I already told you. Ask him yourself. What Alex said next left me in despair. I've never acknowledged you as my mother anyway. I was stunned. Though I had been treated poorly before, I had always treated him as if he were my own child. And to be spoken to like this. Why are you standing there looking stupid? You're in the way. The door was closed again. I spent the entire night on the living room sofa, unable to sleep. Scott didn't return until 7 a.m. the next morning. Hey! Don't sleep here. Ah. Oh. I'm off today, so I'm going to sleep. Wait. What? I heard from Alex. Are you cheating? Huh? No way. Stop saying such ridiculous things. As he moved towards his room, a faint scent similar to perfume wafted from him. I pondered what I should do next. Should we continue to live together as a couple, as a family? I decided to enact a certain plan. A month later, Scott stopped going to work. He didn't seem ill. Hey, what about work? Ah. I quit. What? I figured I don't need to work. You'll become the president eventually. I was baffled by his words, but Scott's wish had unwittingly been fulfilled. Was this punishment for not telling him I had become the president? But dwelling on it now was pointless. What mattered was deciding what to do next. Scott's behavior only worsened from there. If you're not doing anything at home, why don't you look for a new job? Why should I? Because you have nothing else to do. To them, I was no longer a wife or a mother. I had become nothing more than an ATM, dispensing money for them to enjoy themselves while I ate cold, lonely meals. I thought it was time to end this. As usual, when I returned home from work, they were both there. What's going on? Just have a seat. Then the lights went off. Alex came in with a cake, accompanied by cheerful music. Happy birthday. I had completely forgotten, but indeed, today was my birthday. Scott then gave me a cosmetic set I had wanted for a while as a present. The joy of this moment almost made me forgive them both. Suddenly, it's not like such a thing can be done. Yet, the fact that my troubled heart felt lighter was true. I had thought our family's relationship would start to improve from here on. The next day. You had enough fun yesterday, right? Let's continue as usual from today. He said this while holding out his hand. It meant he wanted money. Enough is enough. How long do you plan to keep this up? What? Forever. It would be a better life once you become the president, wouldn't it? He is truly despicable. I chose him, but I never thought it would come to this. I can't right now. Wait a bit. Hurry up. I said this to pacify the situation. I need to seriously find a way out of this. Of course, I thought about consulting my parents many times. But I didn't. Or rather, I couldn't. If I shared my troubles with my parents, I would surely rely on them too much. That was something I wanted to avoid at all costs. One day, when I returned from work, the two of them were not at home. I thought, how long should I keep doing this? Then, I noticed a letter on the table. It said they went on a trip together. Not only that, they took my credit card with them. I hadn't noticed because I usually don't use it. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't stand being manipulated by these two any longer. On the night they returned from the trip, I confronted Scott about it. I'm not free either. Make it quick. He seemed irritated from the start. I took a deep breath. You took my card with you, right? That's basically theft. About that. I made good use of it. Do you realize that what you did is a crime? Huh? What are you talking about? Talking further seemed pointless. At this point, I decided to say something. Fine. Let's drop that topic. There's something more important to talk about. What is it? Actually, my father's company might be going under. Huh? It might collapse. Hearing this, Scott cursed more vilely than I'd ever seen before. Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Do you even understand what you're saying? Of course, I understand. Then he lets out a big sigh. So, you're saying we're going to be out of work from now on? A woman like that is worthless, right? Yeah, that's right. It seemed our son, who had been listening, walked into the living room. His face was grinning. Isn't that a bit too harsh to say? Huh? What are you talking about? You're going to be useless from now on. Useless. It's not that surprising. Honestly, it's embarrassing that such a person was my mom. Hey, don't be so blunt with the truth. He was a stepson from a remarriage. Seeing the ugliness of these two, I even thought that they might have been the reason for the divorce. The verbal abuse towards me did not cease. To think that such a person was my mom. Don't say that. Isn't it sad? But it's the truth. The two of them were getting excited as if I wasn't there. Thinking that I had devoted my life to such people made me feel hopeless. Then, suddenly, they turned their attention to me. By the way, how long are you going to stay in the house? That's true. What do you have to say about that? Huh? You don't understand anything. A woman who can't earn a penny should get out of this house. Dad's right. I can't stand being married to someone ugly like you anymore. Get out, you mean divorce? What else would it be? I married you because you said your father was a company president. Having been told so much already, there was no need for me to hold back anymore. It seemed the happy times were before we got married. If you're going to say that, I'll leave. Are you satisfied now? That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to see your face, so please leave quickly. Are you really okay with this? Enough already. Just go. I couldn't help but be astounded by their stupidity. Moreover, they're forgetting the most important thing. You'll regret this, you know? As if. Stop nagging. The lie I just told was the last chance I gave them. They no longer had any affection for me, only seeing me for my money. I wonder what their reaction would be if they knew my annual income was $13 million. I chuckled to myself. Well then, goodbye. I packed a few belongings and left the house. Now the real show begins. I went straight back to my parents' house. I'm home. What's this all of a sudden? No contact or anything. Well, a lot has happened. You're not going to start talking about divorce again, are you? Hearing those words made me flinch. It seems my father could see through everything. How can I be so bad at judging people? You do well in your job, though. You're going to say that? Well, it's true. After that, I explained everything to my father. He didn't blame me, just listened and nodded. Have you thought about what to do next? First, I need to get a divorce. I've had enough of marriage for a lifetime. I see. From now on, I'll just focus on working for the company. Returning to my parents' house felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For a moment, it seemed I could focus on my work. That was until Scott started calling incessantly. I didn't answer his calls. 3 days later, Alex called. What? Where are you? Why should I tell you? You're the ones who wanted this. Anyway, it's a big mess here. I knew the cause without having to ask. What Alex shared was purely the result of their own actions. Please, help us. Debt collectors are at the house. All I could do was sigh. And, aren't you a mom? For now, yes. But that's ending soon. I'm consulting with a lawyer about the divorce. Alex begged, sounding almost tearful. There's nothing I can do. Where's Scott in all this? I don't know. He hasn't come back since yesterday. I see. But that's not my problem anymore. Goodbye. I hung up. Though I felt a bit sorry for Alex, this was all the result of their recklessness. However, I was curious about where Scott had gone. A week later, as I was leaving for work, I encountered Scott. What are you doing here? Please, I need your help. Huh? How did you even find this place? I went through the boxes at home. You went to all that trouble. But sorry. I won't help you. Wait. Scott looked disheveled, his clothes wrinkled and hair unkempt, likely from avoiding debt collectors. I've left everything to my lawyer, and don't come here again. Please, your father is a president, right? About that. I decided to tell Scott the truth. Actually, I am the president. Huh? What do you mean? Exactly what I said. So, the company going under was, of course, a lie. It was all to test you. If you had said something more reasonable back then. Scott's face turned paler by the second. That's a lie. It's not a lie. My current annual income is $13 million. What? To be honest, I do have a lot of money, but I don't have a single penny to give to you. Can you disappear from here now? I'm going to be late for work. If you have so much money, paying off a debt of $30,000 shouldn't be a big deal. That much. It shouldn't hurt you at all. This is a waste of time. If I'm late, it'll be a loss to the company. Do you think $30,000 is all it will cost? Damn it. Can you disappear from my sight by the time I count to 10? Wait. 10, 9, 8. You'll regret this later. Saying so, Scott fled from the scene. Then, my father appeared from the back. Was there some trouble? Nothing much. I'm off to work now. Wait a minute. What? If you're in trouble, remember you can always talk to me. Thank you. With that, I headed to work. Afterwards, I was able to successfully divorce Scott. Thanks to explaining everything to the lawyer in detail, I also managed to claim back the money that was taken and used without my permission. I'm done being manipulated by those people. Hello? Mom? Dad went over to your place, right? Yes, he came by the other day. What about it? Where is he now? Who knows? You really don't know? I don't. The call ended abruptly. It seems Scott had abandoned even his own son and disappeared. However, it wasn't long before Scott's whereabouts were discovered through the lawyer. Apparently, he was hiding at his parents' house. Scott's parents, sensing something was wrong, had contacted the police. What do you really want? Unable to bear it any longer, I called Scott after he caused trouble for everyone. Jenny? What, you've decided to help me? No. It's because you're being so irresponsible. Causing trouble even for your parents. I am. The only thing I can say is that you should atone for your sins from now on. Scott's life became hellish afterward. He was reportedly working hard every day to repay his debts. As for Alex, it seems he ended up living with Scott's parents. I thought, well, I expected as much. Afterwards, I settled everything and focused on my work. Cutting ties with Scott and his family freed my heart. Now, I'll enjoy life for myself and for my company's sake, free from their influence. Hey, what are you doing? Open up. Huh? Why don't you just stay here for a while? I was locked in the basement by my husband's child. I tried many times to open the basement door, but it wouldn't budge. Originally, I had an accident and was in a motorized wheelchair. So, I couldn't move around well, let alone smoothly. It's cold. Well, of course it is. The temperature right now is 28 degrees. Why are you doing this? Then, my son began to laugh loudly. I've been irritated with you for a long time. What? Acting like a mother. Maybe you'll turn into a mummy staying down here? What are you thinking? I'm going on a trip for 3 nights and 4 days. So, just hang in there until I get back. Please, let me out of here. My desperate cries did not reach my son. Only the sound of his footsteps fading away could be heard. I had no choice but to despair, being unable to do anything. 4 days passed since I was locked up, and my son returned from his trip. What the heck is this? Realizing something was terribly wrong, he hurried to the basement. A shocking scene awaited him as he cautiously looked into the basement. A grand revenge began, irrespective of the stunned son standing by. My name is Tiffany, and I currently work in sales at a cosmetics company. I got married when I was 30. What was different about this marriage was that my husband, Justin, had a child. When we decided to get married, my parents were strongly against it. Marrying someone with a child will definitely bring hardship. Your father is right. But I want to marry him. I pleaded for hours. At first, they wouldn't agree, but I didn't give up talking. And eventually, they allowed the marriage. If you're that determined, I won't stop you. Thank you. The reason I chose Justin, who had a child, was that I felt very comfortable with him. From the first time we met, we got along well because we shared the same hobbies and likes, such as outdoor activities. We met at a bar I frequently visited. By chance, we sat next to each other and ordered the same drink, which led to a casual conversation. After meeting several times, we exchanged contact information. Soon after, Justin contacted me, and we went out for a meal. And this child is? Actually, he's my son. Oh? Your son. His name is Sean, and he's 10 years old this year. I see. I was at a loss for words, not able to catch up with the conversation. Sensing this, my husband said something surprising. I brought my son today because there's a reason. What reason? I want to date you with the intention of getting married. Although I had thought about dating, I hadn't imagined marriage yet. But being told so earnestly, I gradually became happy, and eventually, we started dating. Since then, the 3 of us often went out together. It seems Sean has grown quite fond of you. I hope so. Why don't we ask him? Sean, come here for a moment. What is it, Dad? Sean, would you be happy if Tiffany became your mom? After showing a thoughtful look, he quickly smiled. I would be really happy. See? That's what he said. Yeah. I was very happy and felt a bit shy. This was about 6 months after we met. A week later, I received a formal proposal and we got married. After our marriage, the 3 of us rented a detached house. Looking up at our new home, I imagined a happy family life ahead. However, that life gradually took a strange turn. Until then, my relationship with my son had been good, but suddenly, He became cold towards me. I'm sorry, but it looks like I'll have to go on business trips more often. Business trips? For long? Well, I don't think it'll be for too long, but I might be away from home more often. My relationship with my son was good before we got married, but understandably, I felt anxious about being alone with him right after getting married. Then, one morning, after we had started spending more time together, it happened. What's wrong? Aren't you going to eat? I don't want to. After that, he wouldn't even respond when I spoke to him. Suddenly faced with this situation, I wondered if I had done something wrong and decided to consult with my husband, who had just returned from a business trip. Aren't you overthinking it? But it's so sudden. If I did something wrong, I want to apologize. But you don't remember doing anything, right? That's true, but worrying too much might just make things weirder. Yeah, I guess. That's when I realized something. My son had been taking piano lessons, something my husband wanted for him because he had learned to play the piano as a child himself. He said it was good for the brain to work with your hands. See you next week, Aaron. Yes. See you then. Yeah. He was always smiling when it came to his piano teacher. Even looking at him recently, he seemed happiest in her presence. Why? When my husband was home, my son would talk to me casually. But as soon as my husband went on a business trip, our conversation ceased. He would only leave his room for meals and baths, passing by me as if he couldn't hear me at all. I tried consulting with my husband again, but there was no sign of improvement in our relationship. As time went on, my son eventually became a college student. What should we do from here? Are you talking about Sean? Yes. Before we knew it, we've come this far. Sean is an adult now, not a child anymore. I know, but according to my husband, we shouldn't worry too much. Sure, someday he'll leave the house and be on his own. But I still wanted to improve our relationship. Our conversation about it ended inconclusively. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't understand why he might hate me, so I decided to ask my son directly. Is there something troubling you? Huh? Why are you asking all of a sudden? We haven't talked much recently, and I thought maybe something happened. My son sighed heavily and answered as if it were a hassle. Can you just not talk to me? I have nothing to say to you. You don't have to say that. Then, my son said something shocking. I've hated you from the first time we met. What? I don't like the way you look down on people. I was speechless after being spoken to so harshly. Then, my husband, noticing something was wrong, came over. What's going on here? Nothing. That can't be true. What did you say to her? I just said I hated her. What's so bad about that? You said what? Apologize to her. My husband spoke sternly, trying to admonish our son. However, our son began to talk back even to him. Why should I? Are you being fooled by this woman? Don't say such nonsense. My son continued to resist without backing down. If you're going to say that, then I'll just leave. That's fine, right? Hey, where are you going? Wait. He left the house. And with that, my son's rebellion became even more intense. Aren't you going to chase after him? No. Let's just leave him be for now. He'll come back eventually. Despite the harsh words, he was still my dear son. I wanted to chase after him, but I chose to wait, believing he would return soon. However, my son did not come back the next night. Unable to stay put, I went outside. He's not around the house, is he? Regretting my impulsive decision to come out, I then saw my son emerging from a house. I quickly hid behind a pole. What's he doing here? I stayed hidden until he disappeared into the darkness. The house he came out of was the piano school he had attended years ago. It was already night, but I had unwittingly ended up on a familiar path. It had been years since I last came here. However, I couldn't understand why my son had come out of there. "Where have you been?" I immediately went home and asked my son. "Huh? Why do I have to tell you that?" Here, I decided to test the waters. "I thought I saw you around the piano school earlier." "Piano?" At that moment, his voice seemed to falter slightly. "What were you doing?" "I wasn't at such a place." "Why would I go to Aaron's place?" His response made me sure that I hadn't mistaken him. Sean had quit piano lessons as soon as he graduated from elementary school. Even though some time had passed since quitting, the fact that he was calling her by her first name instead of using teacher indicated they hadn't just met yesterday or today. "I see." Seemingly annoyed, he muttered under his breath. "Just shut up, will you?" Although I had already been under a lot of emotional strain, his words still shocked me. Just then, my husband came home at the perfect time. Seeing his father return, Sean retreated to his room. As Justin entered the living room, he had a somewhat exasperated expression. "Did he say something to you again?" "Huh? You can tell? It's obvious just by looking at your face." "So, what happened?" I told my husband about what our son had just said to me. Then, Justin gently placed his hand on my shoulder and spoke kindly. "I'm really sorry." "Why are you apologizing?" "Because I wasn't there to listen properly today. It's partly my fault. I've been away from home a lot on business trips. But it still hurts to hear things like that." As I murmured softly, my husband was about to go talk to our son. "Wait a minute." I grabbed his arm to stop him. "Why stop me?" "I have to talk to him. Just listen for a moment." I held him back because I had remembered something. It was about him coming out of the piano school. I wasn't mistaken, and I tested him by asking. "He called her name." "Piano?" "He used to go to lessons in elementary school, right?" "Yes." "I don't know when it started, but they seem to be on good terms." "But why would he?" "I can't figure out the reason either." "Maybe we should just watch the situation a bit more." "I see. Maybe that's a good idea." I wanted to know the reason badly. Perhaps that was causing him to treat me so terribly. My wish was to solve this problem and improve our relationship with our son. I really want to make things right. "All right. I'll help out too. Let's work on this together." "Yeah." Although I said this to my husband, I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to it. So I decided to look into Aaron's background. For now, we decided to just keep an eye on our son. But when things go bad, they really go bad. On my way home from work, disaster struck. I was hit by a car that ran a red light while I was crossing the street, resulting in a traffic accident. "Are you okay?" "Sorry for this happening." "What are you talking about?" "I'm just glad you're safe." "But my legs." I had severely injured my back, resulting in spinal cord damage that left my legs completely immobile. "Does that mean you can't walk anymore?" I nodded silently. "I ended up being hospitalized for about half a year. You're busy with work, and now this. It's not your fault. But you have a business trip tomorrow, right?" "I'm fine, so you should go back and get ready." "Well, yes, but I'm really okay." "All right." He left the hospital room. I bit my lip, trying hard not to cry. It was the next day. My son came to visit me in the hospital. "How are you feeling?" "I can't move my legs, but otherwise, I'm okay." Then, my son gave an unpleasant smile. "Can't walk, huh?" Now you're useless. You don't have to say that. Maybe Dad will divorce you now. Not that I would mind. His cruel words continued. I didn't talk back, just taking his words like a punching bag. As Sean seemed satisfied, he began to leave the hospital room. Just before exiting, he turned back to me. Well, do your best. I'm not up for caregiving. All I could do was watch his back as he left. Alone in the hospital room, I lay down and silently shed tears. I had never felt such pain in my life before. Then, as if on cue, Justin came to visit. I have something important to talk about today. Something important? I tensed up, remembering Sean's words and fearing that Justin might bring up divorce. However, what he said next was surprisingly reassuring. I've been thinking about buying a house. Our current one isn't barrier-free, and I know it's been tough for you. Maybe, but to do all that for me. It's okay. Of course, there was one thing on my mind, Sean. What does Sean think? I did talk to him about it, but he seemed disinterested. We hardly have proper conversations these days. I see. While I was hospitalized, Justin had been looking for a new home. It was true that our old house was inconvenient given my wheelchair. Building a new house would have taken too much time. 2 weeks later, Justin visited and revealed he had already purchased a house. I've bought the house. Already? There was a model home in a nice location. I decided on it right after the viewing. All this for me. I just want you to live comfortably. Thank you so much. I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Upon my discharge and arrival at the new home, I was amazed. It was more impressive than I had imagined. Nice house, isn't it? Yes, it's wonderful. And this house even has a basement. A basement too. More surprises were in store. Oh right, there was something else. He went to the back of the room and returned. Could it be? Yes, it's an electric wheelchair. Even something like this. With this, you can move around more freely. I can't thank you enough. I did this on my own. I hoped this would lessen the burden on Justin. Although I couldn't do everything right away, I was determined to try my best to go outside. From that day on, I began to take care of myself. Sean, however, did not seem pleased to see me becoming more independent. Move out of the way. You're such a nuisance. Then, he kicked my wheelchair. That's dangerous. You're useless, don't just sit around here. I'm trying to lessen the burden. As if that changes anything. There's no need to be so cruel. Your very existence is a burden. What's the point? I attempted to return to my room, but he blocked my way. Where do you think you're going? I was just going back to my room. That's okay, right? I'm not done talking yet. I have nothing more to say to you. I had hoped for an improvement in our relationship, but I realized this might be the end. My patience had reached its limit. Running away, huh? If that's what you want to think, fine. I don't understand why Dad married someone like you. He kicked my wheelchair again and returned to his room upstairs. For a while, he stopped talking to me, and I felt a bit lighter. I'm sorry, but I have another business trip scheduled. I understand. I feel bad, especially since we haven't resolved things with Sean. It's okay. I'll contact you if anything happens. With that, Justin left for his business trip, and once again, it was just Sean and me at home. Sean started leaving the house more often as soon as Justin was gone. I became anxious, wondering when he would return. But on that day, Sean did not come back until after I had gone to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I could hear noises coming from the second floor. It seemed Sean had returned while I was asleep. But there was no sign of him leaving his room. Today marks the start of work. I was determined. Having become disabled, I thought I had no choice but to quit my job. But I was recognized for my past work and was told that I could continue working remotely. I turned on my computer to start working. That's when I realized something. My mouse was missing. Where did I put it? I remembered that computer peripherals were stored in the basement storage. Knowing Sean would likely ignore me if I asked for help, I decided I had to retrieve it myself. The electric wheelchair really does make things easier, though it felt like a hassle. I didn't want to postpone it and headed straight to the basement. The basement was accessible through a door behind the staircase. Slowly descending the slope, I reached out for a box in the back. As I placed the box on my lap and prepared to head back up, I heard someone coming down the stairs. Thinking Sean had finally woken up, I saw him descending the slope. "What are you doing down here?" "Just looking for something." A part of me felt a bit happy, thinking he might have come to help. "Then, I'll help you." With that, he closed the door. Shocked, I froze for a moment but soon realized this was a bad situation. Not only was I trapped, but it was also incredibly cold. Checking the wall-mounted thermometer, I was astonished to see it read 28 degrees. "What are you doing?" "Open up." "Huh? Why don't you just stay here for a while?" Despite my efforts, the basement door wouldn't budge. Originally, I was in an electric wheelchair, which limited my mobility. It's cold." "Well, of course it is. The temperature right now is 28 degrees. Why are you doing this?" Then, my son began to laugh loudly. "I've been irritated with you for a long time." "What?" "Acting like a mother. Maybe you'll turn into a mummy staying down here?" "What are you thinking?" "I'm going on a trip for 3 nights and 4 days. So, just hang in there until I get back. Please, let me out of here." "All right." After waiting for a while, Sean returned with something in his hands. The door opened slightly, and through the gap, he threw in 2 bags of snacks and a bottle of water. "Is this supposed to last me?" "That should be enough." "Well, this is. Goodbye. For now. Just open it." My desperate cries did not reach my son. Only the sound of his footsteps fading away could be heard. I was left with no choice but to despair. It seemed he wasn't seriously intending to end my life. I had to figure out how to survive for 4 days. I need to find a way to deal with this cold. I frantically searched for anything useful. After rummaging through cardboard boxes, I found an old blanket. With no other options, I covered myself with it to stave off the cold. With no way to call for help, I waited. 4 days passed before Sean returned from his trip. And then, the stage was set for a grand retaliation. I secretly watched Sean's movements. Let's see what happens now. Sean headed towards the basement, cautiously opening the door. What the heck is this? An odd smell wafted from the basement, noticeable even from a distance. He entered in a panic. No way, is she dead? I should never have listened to that person. In the back of the basement, there was something wrapped in a blanket. Sean probably thought it was me, but it was a trap set by me and another person. "What are you doing there?" Sean immediately turned around. "Why are you here?" "I wonder why." "Don't mess with me. That's my line. You shouldn't do such things without being prepared for the consequences." "What? Mocking me?" Just as Sean approached. "I never thought you'd go this far." "Dad, why are you here? Weren't you on a business trip?" "I came back because I couldn't reach you. Then I found you had locked her in the basement." "That's right. I was rescued by Justin. It happened just yesterday. To deceive our son, my husband and I filled a bag with kitchen waste to make it seem like it was decaying, and used a blanket to resemble me. This ruse was a success. So, who is this a person you mentioned? Huh? Did I say something like that? Don't play dumb. I don't know what you're talking about. That's when I realized I might know who this person was. Could it be Aaron? Sean stepped back, a clear giveaway. You mentioned coming out of the piano school before, right? Yes. They must have been sneaking around behind our backs. Then let's find out for sure. Huh? You must have her contact information, right? Let's invite her here. Wait a minute. Just call her. Sean contacted Aaron. Soon after, the doorbell rang. Sean went to greet her, and they both headed to the basement. Now, let's hear an explanation. It was natural that she couldn't meet my eyes in such an awkward situation. I just wanted Dad to be happy. What's so great about her? You really don't understand anything. What do you mean? I chose Tiffany because she accepted me as I am. And you think Aaron would be any different? Why go through all this? Did you think I'd fall for such a woman? I thought we should hear it straight from the person involved. Wait. Since she's here, let's ask Aaron. Caught off guard, her eyes widened. Everyone's gaze focused on her. I was using Sean. I only said to scare you a little, not to lock you in the basement. I had heard about Aaron when Sean was attending piano lessons. It seemed she had been inviting him out even before I met him, despite his refusals. After we got married, he started to dislike being dropped off and picked up. That's why I decided to do the drop-offs and pickups myself, to keep an eye on things. I did use Sean, but I never wanted to be with him. What? I just couldn't stand to see the person I liked being happy. So, you wanting to be with Dad was. I'm sorry. That was a lie. Then, I remembered something I had researched before. Being together was never possible. What do you mean? Because Aaron is married. That's a lie. Is that right? Aaron nodded silently. It wasn't surprising Sean didn't know. Aaron's husband was also working away from home. Then, what was all this for? Seeing Sean's dejected look, I whispered something to my husband. I see. That explains it. What are you talking about? You liked Aaron, didn't you? What? Sean looked down but quickly raised his head. That's not true. Thinking about it, a lot of things don't add up. You said it was for me, but there were other ways to handle this. Aaron, you knew about Sean's feelings, right? Yes. It's such a shame. You were just used for revenge. After all I've done for Aaron. Sean slumped to the floor, overwhelmed. Justin placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, and Sean's expression seemed to soften a bit. Perhaps he was hoping for some sympathy. We, as his parents, had decided to be strict with him, even if he was our precious son, to correct his behavior. It's unfortunate, but you're an adult. Being deceived, even if it was the case, doesn't excuse your actions. So, leave this place right now. Wait. Isn't that too harsh? Harsh? Think about what you've done before you say that. Such a woman. I had no intention of holding back either. What you did to me could be considered a crime of confinement. There was also a risk to my life. That's why you panicked, didn't you? Tiffany is right. Do you think we can live with someone dangerous like that? Sean might have thought it was a trivial matter, but this is a serious crime. It's a sufficient reason to kick him out. Then let's give him a choice. Either we call the police or he leaves this house. That's a good idea. So, what will it be? We decided to give him a choice, but there was never really any option for Sean. Fine. I'll leave. All right. But I'll continue to pay for your tuition until you graduate. Everything else, you're on your own. And don't ever come back to this house. You don't have to go that far. Do you want to be reported? Hearing that, Sean looked down and fell silent again. Aaron. What should I do now? He was seeking help from Erin this time. However, her calm demeanor was gone, replaced by anger towards Sean. You really did something unnecessary. Who told you to go this far? I never thought you'd be this foolish. But I just did what you told me to. Did what I told you. I never said to commit a crime. What's that supposed to mean? You tricked me first. An irrelevant argument was unfolding before us. If you two want to fight, do it outside. It's just a nuisance here. Exactly. If you keep making a fuss, I'll really call the police. Calmed by my voice, the two of them stopped arguing and left the house. I might have thought it was a bit too much to kick out our son. However, what he did to me was a crime. Sean needs to understand the gravity of his actions and learn to live rightly. This was the right thing to do, wasn't it? Yes. You don't need to worry about it. But still, it's fine. If we coddle him, he'll never truly become an adult. You're right. Sean moved out and started living in an apartment. As Justin said, we continued to pay his tuition, but he was earning his living expenses himself. It seems he had to juggle multiple part-time jobs. Once, Sean called me. I'm sorry for everything. Could you lend me some money? What? Why should I do that? You chose to leave this house. So that's how it is. What are you talking about? It's clear now. You care about Dad, not me. If that's what you're going to say, then don't contact me again. As if I'd ever contact you again. He hung up the phone. Sean would be turning 20 this year. This should have been the best time of his life. Not being able to make memories of his youth is something he'll have to accept as the consequence of his actions. Erin, thereafter, moved away quietly. Where she is and what she's doing now, I have no way of knowing. Finally, things have settled down. Yes. Let's keep supporting each other. And so, our life as a couple began anew. Surely, happiness will continue in our lives ahead.